This episode of the Blue Collar Real Estate Podcast brought to you by Stacy Mayo and the Scott Miller team at Ruoff Mortgage. Whether you're buying new or refinancing, Ruoff has a solution for you. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Blue Collar Real Estate. I'm Greg Mayo.
And I'm Ryan Herget. Greg, it's been a long time since we've talked actual real estate, you know,
Right.
Like it's in the title and all, but we've not talked a lot of real estate. We've been down this path of, and I've got a story or two to share with the audience this week, but as far as the trades industries and maybe some opportunities for people that may be available for people there. But ultimately, we've not talked real estate in a good while, and we're now into fourth quarter. We still don't know who the president is. We were just talking about that before the show went on. It's only been like a week, I think, and we still don't know. But ultimately, we're well into fourth quarter now. Real estate is truly as busy as it's been all year right now. Right now. I spent almost an hour on the phone with somebody today that is working on buying their second home, not their first home. So he gets how to do this, right? He knows how to buy a house. But he's frustrated because we've lost out on a couple really nice houses to people buying the home with cash. And he's really frustrated that it's like, what the heck do I have to do to just even buy a house right now? So we're going to talk about that a little bit this episode, like what's legitimately going on. And again, we're only going to speak to what's going on here in Indianapolis because that's what we know. If you're out there listening and you want to talk about other areas, we'd love to hear about that because it's amazing to me the fact that we're well into fourth quarter right now and things are just not slowing down.
No, they're not at all.
Much, maybe a little bit. I've got a little bit of a thought on that, but go ahead.
Well, for me, this is October is always busy for me. That's always my busiest month.
Yep.
I will outpace my closes in November that I did in October.
Yep.
And it's not because I'm doing anything special. It's just stuff's that busy.
Yep.
And just like the trades, when we talk about those, what are the three keys?
You gotta, number one, show up.
Right.
And be on time.
And do what you say you're going to do.
And do what you say you're going to do. Like, it's that simple. Well, magically in real estate, it's funny, I was just showing you a text before we went on air. It's like I've tried to do less real estate over the last several months and more roofing and contracting and, trade stuff because that's what I love. And because I do those things, or at least I do my very, very best at them every single day, show up on time, do what I say I'm going to do. Like, people won't go work with anybody else. I try.
Right.
And I don't say that in any other way because it's so important to just do those three things. And regardless of whatever you do, real estate, the trades industries, any business in general, just show up on time, do what you say you're going to do. But let's get back to real estate here.
Yeah, because there's some weird stuff going on in the market in general, but in Indy, right?
Yeah. I
was just on the way to the studio tonight. I was talking to a guy from a title company.
Yep.
They do a lot of downtown stuff, just like I do. And we got to talking about, I think over in Israel somewhere, there's been a touring real estate convention. And you and I talked about this a couple weeks ago.
I only laugh because, yes, I have done more than 6 webinars for Israeli real estate investors buying homes here in Indianapolis. And they are buying homes. This is I'm not laughing because this is false. They are buying homes here. I just don't particularly want to do that part of real estate anymore.
But they call it, and not just the Israelis, but
everywhere.
They call, they've got the same script, they ask the same questions. And it's just mind-boggling to me. So there's a lot, because Indianapolis is a great city, It's
an amazing city.
The market for real estate is great, especially when you look at the price of real estate in places like the West Coast or New York City.
It's amazingly affordable. Indianapolis is such a great place to do real estate. It's a great place to raise a family. It's in the heart of the Midwest, but more importantly, it's stable as heck. We have great employment. We have relatively open-minded thinking here, I think, and we've got all this new technology industry. We've got everything down from Amazon's bringing new jobs here. Everything from factory work to new technology is being brought to this city because I think we truly have had some good leaders in the past that have built this city up to what it is right now, and it's doing well. It's doing really, really well, and that's continuing to move this real estate industry forward in amazing ways. I've been involved. I was having this conversation earlier today, actually. I've been involved in real estate in this industry since 1999. Literally, that's a long time ago now. It says how old I am, but I've been around this for a while. We've never seen growth like this. We've never seen appreciation like this. I was around in 2001 when we had the number one selling community in the United States, 56 and Raceway Road. Real estate's been good for a long time. It's we're experiencing things here now that we've not seen, and we're coming out of COVID, right?
But
or maybe hopefully out of COVID.
What we're doing is, because of Indy and because of what you said, and many, many more factors, we're drawing people from out of state here.
You got it.
That's great, but we're also drawing out of state investors. And we have these conversations, right? You and I have talked about it before. I've now got a checklist. If you call me and say you're an investor, there's questions I got to ask you before I know if you're really an investor, right?
But let's talk about what opportunities exist, to focus on a positive light here. For that person who is an investor here in Indianapolis, there is amazing opportunities still out there right now. But I feel that there's some pieces of the puzzle that a lot of times people miss. And we've talked about that. I think it was on episode 2. We talked about how do you build a team, right?
Right.
But you're working now, and I got a phone call from, a gentleman that we've both helped, in the last year, and got a phone call, and he's like, I am so thankful you introduced me to Greg, because one of the things he said is like, it's all about building the right team of people that you can trust to get the job done. Well, you've been able to deliver on that for him in a really, really strong way this year, and that's what everything's about. But if you're going to be an investor and you think you got this and you don't have a team of great people behind you, it is so ultra competitive right now. I mean, I've just written offers with buyers for homes under $200,000, and we're struggling to get one accepted because it's so competitive right now. So what do you think it is at $80,000? Where everybody's got cash, right? Where everybody's got cash. It's so ultra competitive, and there's so many people looking to do the same thing. That's what people have to realize. You're not the only game in town. Everybody's been doing this, and the word's been out for a good while.
Well, and this gentleman you're talking about. So one thing I told him day before yesterday, when we were driving around looking at different neighborhoods that he'd never even thought of. Garfield Park South, right? Old South Side. Some of these really cool areas of town. And like I told him, you've got what a lot of investors call the tier 1 areas, right?
Yeah. Like Fountain Square.
Like Fountain Square,
yeah,
right.
To give people examples, like a Fountain Square, a Bates Hendricks area, an area that's been going for a good minute now. There's more than a couple years of history to show the trend of what's going on, to where you can sell it to the average person and it makes sense to buy
But everybody wants to be there.
Right.
So
now they do.
Now you go into Fountain Square, for example, since that's the example you brought up. I'm going to buy a turd of a house for $150,000.
And here's the thing.
And then I'm going to dump another 100 into it and have 6 months and all that kind of stuff.
Oh man,
I pulled a Ryan.
That's the first time. That's awesome.
Beep.
And I want to agree with you. And here's the thing. I remember a gentleman coming. Funny story. I was at another investment property and talked to another guy that the same gentleman I'm talking about. His name's John Karamaski. I'm going to give some kudos to him. Super, super cool gentleman. And this guy brings a property to me in Fountain Square in late 2012. Right? It's 2012. We're just coming out of the recession, right? This is coming out of the bad stuff, right? This is when things haven't taken off. I think we did an episode on this where the average sales price in Fountain Square was $27,000. He's like, I've just helped a few people with homes in here. There's going to be some money going into this area. You may want to look at this. I've got a couple houses. What are your thoughts? Brings me opportunities. I'm like, yeah, I'm busy. Well, we all know how that story turned out. It's been pretty terrible for me, very awesome for other people. But guess what? That was 2012. That was 8 years ago. That train's been out.
So what you have to know now, today, and this is something that we talked about with this investor we're talking about. I'll just say his name, what we talked about with Paul. Now, what's the next Fountain Square?
That's it. That's where I feel people have to look right now. It's beyond just what's going on, because I feel the indicators that are fueling our market, at least, and again, we're being hyper specific to our market here in Indianapolis, but the indicators that are fueling this market, employment rates are awesome right now. Consumer confidence is relatively high amidst everything that's happened this year. As we wrap up 2020, man, interest rates are still low. Who knows how long they're going to be low? But they're basically free money out there.
Yeah, right.
Basically, so all the indicators that drive a strong real estate market exist, and they're not slowing down at all right now. So is it a good time to invest? Is it a good time to buy? It's hard for me to paint the picture of no.
And it is, if you know the right areas. And Paul and I went and looked at some areas that, if you pay attention to local news, I don't mean the TV, well, I mean, that's fine, but if you pay attention to what's going on with local business, right, and the city, what you find out is that there's areas that the city's investing in, infrastructure-wise. Those are the areas you want to start looking at, because they know something.
That's it.
Over by Little Flower, there's an area that's getting ready to get developed that I got wind of from somebody I know that works for the city. And so now we're starting to talk about that. That's why we're in Little Flower. We're getting ready to build a house in Little Flower. And that's the other thing. So building opportunities, building new opportunities are all over the place in Indy right now.
So you've learned a lot about that this year. You've done a lot of building in the past, obviously. So let's tell everybody about what that opportunity could exist, or could be for them. Because obviously you guys have been building several houses this year. A lot of people don't even consider that. They think because they watch HGTV that you have to go in and you have to buy this old dilapidated house and you have to put this money into it and then you're magically going to sell it for this and everything's going to be perfect in 98 minutes. Whatever that time period is on the show. I don't even watch it. But
Thank you for not watching HGTV.
Right. But ultimately, that's the vision, right?
Right.
A lot of times people don't consider possibly building spec inventory homes. And here's what's beautiful, about that is what's every buyer in the marketplace want today? Something turnkey. I don't have to do anything to. That's ready to go.
You're going to say it.
Right?
Bright, new, and shiny.
That's bright, new, and shiny, right? Because people will pay a premium for that versus having to have the vision or the time or the inclination or the ability or the resources to go in and rehab a house on their own right now. So.
And one thing about, and I love remodeling, and that. I really, really love old houses. I'm talking 100-year plus old houses, right?
That's where you and I, split paths a little
bit. But when you build new, it is so controllable. Adam and I have been having this conversation.
What's that mean, controllable? So for people listening, what's controllable mean? So give an example of one or two things that are not controllable with a resale home that are with a brand new home.
Okay. Great question. Let's say I go into a house in Garfield Park.
Yep.
A house built in the 30s, right? And I buy it, and I strip the plaster and lath off down to the drywall. Now, in my budget, I've got $1,000 miscellaneous for electrical repairs. Because I go in the basement when I buy it, and I see there's a brand new service panel. I'm like, okay, electric's been upgraded. Well, then I strip off the drywall, and I find out that it's all active knob and tube.
Yeah.
Code requires when you disturb knob and tube, in other words, if it's not disturbed and it's just left there, it's still okay. If you disturb it, now you have to replace it all.
Yep.
So now my $1,000 electrical budget just went up to $9,000.
Yep.
And you can run into that with HVAC, with plumbing. You see a bunch of PEX, and we've talked about that before in the plumbing episode. You see a bunch of PEX supply lines, and you're like, okay, the water system's been updated. And then you tear behind a wall or you get deeper into the crawl space, and you're like, oh, crap, there's a bunch of low-flow galvanized.
Right.
Now I got to replace all that. A sewer scope.
That saved us some money in the past.
Now, let's say you bought the house and you helped an investor buy the house, and the investors decided, I'm not spending the money on a scope, right? Well, now there's a clog in the sewer line, so there's $10,000.
Yeah, and that $325 that it costs for that sewer scope is definitely well worth that investment because the cost and the repercussions are so exorbitant,
now,
and things like that.
Let's jump over to the other side, and now I'm building new.
Yep.
I go to my electrician, and I hand a set of blueprints to Kent, and I say, dude, how much is it going to be to wire that house? And he's got the electric print, and he gives me a price. He's going to be within 5% of that.
Right, because there's not going to be that surprise factor with building new, because you know that I'm going to have to drill through these studs, I'm going to have to go out here, I need an outlet here, here, and here, etc. Right?
Right. So, and it's more controllable. And if you pay attention to the commodities markets for lumber, and this is getting kind of a little geekish on it,
going a little deep, I feel.
But if you see the futures market on commodities going up, then if you've got the space, maybe you get a couple extra bunks of plywood. You save a little money that way.
I've definitely appreciated that in the last several months.
Because you don't know, like my house, right? Your guys came over, took down the chimney. He ended up having to go get some framing material that he didn't count on.
Yep.
If you guys were building my house, you would know exactly how many sheets of plywood you needed.
Exactly. Yeah.
And with Adam and the investors we're working with, we've picked 3 floor plans that we're going to replicate at different places. We can change little bits on the facade. We can change siding color and different stuff, so they're not just cookie cutter. But once we do a few of these, we're going to know exactly how much money, how much plywood, how much flooring, how much whatever it's going to take to build these homes.
Now you can then create a replicatable model that
Right.
you can go out and help other people with. Once you do one thing the first time, then it's a heck of a lot easier to do it the second, third, and fourth times. And that's what I wish people would consider if you're getting into real estate investment specifically is, look, it's not a bad deal to just break even on your first deal because you're going to learn something, right? The lessons you're going to learn are going to be invaluable, but you've got to get started. And this is not an episode on real estate investing, but specifically we're talking a lot about it right now, is that you have to do that first deal. You have to learn what you don't know that you don't know yet. And after you do that, now all of a sudden it gets a little bit easier the second time. You learn how to plan ahead. You learn
Right.
what other tools that you need in order to make sure that you don't have that problem again. Maybe you invest $300 in a security system so that way you don't have to replace an AC unit a couple times. Whatever it may be. When
does that happen?
There's different things that you can consider, but those are all things that you learn as you go throughout the process. So let's kind of shift real quick. We've spent a little bit of time talking about, what's going on from an investment standpoint. It's ultra competitive. It remains that way. You've got to have a good team. I think those are, things that we can definitely accept from if you want to get into, the real estate investing world, especially here in the Midwest. There is ample opportunity, but you've got to be willing to do the work, right? You've got to put that team together. You've got to be able to go find properties. You've got to be able to make sure that it gets done on time, gets delivered to market, whether you're planning on renting that thing out or you're planning on flipping it. You've got to have that plan. You've got to have a good team of people in place to make sure that you can execute on it and accomplish your goal.
Right, but if we slip over to being a home buyer,
Yep.
like I'm going to live in this joint, there's still, I've told clients this for the last 4 or 5 years, if I can't find you a house, I'll build you one.
Mm-hmm.
And you can, because within the city, now you get out in the suburbs, one-off lots are harder to find. But within the city, you can find one-off lots, meaning a lot not in a newly to be developed area. You can pick up for a decent price and you can have a home built on it. What's your budget?
That takes some work, though. And that takes having a good team of people in place to do that, right? Like, that's not something you just say, you know what, I want to build a new house. Because it's going to take you probably 3 months of conversations and understanding who can I trust, who's the right person to do this for me. But you're 100% right. It's a very, very viable option. If you want to do that, call Greg, not me.
And that's what we try to do, right? My clients that closed today, not on a brand new house, but that we closed today on, the running joke with them is, Greg knows a guy. Mm-hmm. Whatever they need done, I know a guy. They just bought the house. They need the sprinkler system shut down for the winter. Greg, do you know a guy? I know a guy. Let me give you his number. That's what we try to be, right, to our clients. Have that solution, that answer. But now let's shift a minute. And we're talking about how, especially under the $200,000 mark, but even really beyond that, especially if you're up in Carmel, Noblesville, Westfield, how hard it is to get an offer accepted, right?
It is, and that's what I really want people to take into consideration right now. If you're watching the TV shows and you're seeing what's happening, that's cool, and you do you there. And we can go into the data, but Greg's kind of toned me down from doing deep dive into data this episode, so I'm going to not refer to the MyBoard MLS here in Indianapolis and show you a deep dive into what's going on. I'll give you the Cliff Notes version.
Ironically.
There it is. You have the Cliff Notes version right there. So, Greg, the thing that I want people to really take away, though, is truly there's less than a month of houses available. Like, literally, if a new home does not become available tomorrow and stops, like everybody says, I'm never selling my house again in my life, right?
Right.
All of them are gone in less than a month, okay?
24 days, actually, yep.
And here's what we know that means, okay? According to the Fed, like the Federal Reserve, right? Okay, anytime you're in a real estate market where the average house, not the good ones, right? Not the bad ones that are like terrible and sit on the market forever, okay? But the average house, it sits on the market for 90 days. That's what's called a seller's market. Let me define a seller's market, okay? Let's go back to high school economics, since I am not a smart individual. High school economics say that if there's more people that want to buy something than there is an available product, something has to happen to the price, right?
Right.
It's going to go up, right? And we've been in that state now for about 7 years. And it's literally at an all-time high here in our market. This is shifting on different other parts of the country right now from conversations I've had with other real estate agents. But here it's not impacted us nearly as substantial yet, although I've got a couple of stories for another episode on that. But simply put, There is so many people seeing houses. You cannot put a home on the market right now under $200,000 that doesn't get 10 showings opening weekend, right? There's that many people looking for homes right now, and that's driving price up. So how do you make your offer stand out? Because here's something else that's not changed in this market. And this has been going on now for at least 8 years. And that's, institutional and corporate investors buying these homes to not turn around and sell them, but to turn around and hold them for a long time.
Right, because if you can't find a house to buy, then all you people now are in competition for rentals. So then the rental price goes way up.
And that's so the case. And I want to encourage people to consider this real quick. This used to be the thing where you could buy a house for less than you could afford to pay in rent. That's not, well, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Yes, you still can, because money is so cheap right now, but rental rates have gone so high right now. Rental rates are through the roof that literally on average right now, and if you want to do a deep dive into your specific zip code, give me a call. I'd love to do this with you. It's a quick Zoom and it'd be easy to do and it'll be fun for me. But ultimately, if you want to see what's going on, it's super simple to show you. But for most homes, especially under $300,000 here in Indianapolis, oh my gosh, you're going to positively cash flow with a basic 30-year loan right now about $300 a month.
Yep.
Right? You're going to positive cash flow $300 a month, and the difference in what your mortgage payment is and what you can rent that thing out for right now. And there's ways you can dramatically improve that margin quickly. If you want to know what those are, give us a call. We can talk about that. But that's just it. Is these institutional investors know that. And that's what one of the gentlemen I'm working with right now is so frustrated about, because we keep losing to a cash offer.
Right.
Okay. He's trying to buy under $225, and we keep losing to cash offers. The challenge is this, though, and on the flip side of that same coin, he sold his home to a cash offer for a variety of reasons. Okay. And we'll talk about those reasons, but that's what you're competing with. And that's what you have to know exists in the market, because that's what nobody is talking about. Right. Nobody is saying that there's these institutional investors or groups of 5 or 6 buddies that have $1 million that they want to throw into a market. Well, it's a heck of a lot easier for a seller to take a cash offer than it is to deal with anybody getting a loan. Why do you think that is?
So, well, because there's less problems, right? Or the potential for less problems.
The potential for
less
problems.
Potential problems.
You, generally speaking, you're not going to have to deal with an appraisal. Okay,
right.
So that's a hurdle that does not need to be crossed. Okay, and I've dealt with several appraisal issues. I don't know about you this year, but it's been an Achilles heel for me.
There've been a few, sure.
There's been 1 or 2. Okay, and then secondly, a lot of times investors, they own multiple homes, so they're not as worried about a small little item on an inspection report. In fact, funny story, I got a text from a gentleman today that also sold his home to an investor because it was way easier and way simpler, for less money, I might add, about $4,000 less. And the difference is they were there for 4 minutes for their home inspection. I got that text today about 1:30 today. Home inspector was here for about 4 minutes. In and out, said home was awesome. I'm like, that's the best news of our day.
Right.
Thumbs up emoji. Right. And that's it, though, because they own 100 of these houses, and fixing a faucet that's broken or fixing some floors, that's just an economies of scale to them. Right.
Right. And they've already likely got a warehouse.
That's it.
They've got floor tile. They've got extra ovens or ranges sitting around.
400 gallons of Sherwin-Williams,
agreeable gray. Yeah, and so when we know we're competing against that, what can we do, right? What do we need to do to get our agents bought? These clients that just closed today. So, funny story, I met them 2.5 years ago. They were looking downtown at that time. We looked at house after house, and we kept getting beat on offers. And they were looking like Irish Hill, Cottage Hill, these really nice areas.
Yeah, absolutely.
We kept getting beat. Finally, they went, screw it, we're going to rent for a little bit and see what happens. Luckily, they reached out to me again when they were ready to look. Just as the market has changed, even in 2 years, I've learned more. If you're in a job, and I got to say this, no matter, and luckily the agent on the other side today, she was amazing. But if you're in a job, I don't care what your job is. I don't care if your job is the fry guy at McDonald's, which I've had that job, for disclosure. But whatever it is, understand that if you're excellent today, that doesn't mean you're going to be excellent tomorrow. You have to keep learning, right? When I started in this business, I didn't really like real estate agents, so I wouldn't really call them. I'm like, I don't talk to them, all cheesy and blah, 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 blah. Well, anyway, So we go to look at houses about a month ago, and they found one they liked. The first thing I did after I talked to them about what do we want to offer, made sure they remembered earnest money, blah, 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 blah. This is what will help make our offer stronger, my conversation with them. First thing I did when I left the house was call the listing agent. Hey, this is Greg Mayo, Blue Collar Real Estate. Clients love the home. We're going to be putting an offer in. She's like, oh, okay, we've already got 4. And I was like, ooh, dang it. I turned into Macho Man Randy Savage. Anybody else remember him?
Yes.
Snap into a Slim Jim. Anyway.
I do remember those commercials, by the way. I watched some NASCAR in the early 90s.
Nice. So did I. But anyway, so we had this conversation. Any special considerations your clients need. Turns out they were buying a condo, they were older, needed a couple days possession after close, a couple other little namby-pamby stuff. I called my clients and I said, okay, this is kind of what they're needing. Need a closing date about here, and they need this and they need that. My clients were like, yeah, cool, put it in the offer. So when I submitted the offer in a multiple offer situation, I'd already talked to the agent, and I submitted an offer that was tailored to her client's needs. That still, by the way, 100% represented the best interest of my client.
Right.
In fact, I would argue maybe more so. So after 2.5 years ago, months and months of not being able to buy a frickin' house, we go out and look at 3 houses, get one under contract, we just closed on it.
That's awesome.
It's relearning how to do the market, right? Back 12 years ago, you talk about when the crash happened and all that. I was a carpenter back then, a contractor. You were in real estate. If you went and looked at a house, you could be like, all right, well, I'm going to call my mom. My dad's flying in from Florida, and I think my aunt's coming down from Toronto. We'll go look at it in a week or 2 and see if we still like it, right?
Literally. That was an option at that point in time. Whereas now, you've got to leave work to go see a house if you want to get it, if you don't trust FaceTime on your phone. Yeah. That's how competitive it is now. And that's what's so uniquely different about, buying a home today. I helped so many people sell their homes, back in 05, 06 and buy their next house. Well, now doing that today, it's just an entirely different experience for people. And you have to have different strategies. You have to have a different plan for doing that because the market is different. And so that's one thing I definitely love about the real estate industry is it's always forcing you to evolve. It's forcing you to develop, ask yourself the tough questions, and figure out how to get a little bit better every single day. So,
and I'll tell you, because of the nature of our business, things are always a little bit different than they were. And with a city like Indianapolis, and I'm sure it's true of Cleveland and wherever else, I don't know what Cleveland first thing came to mind, but
first thing that came to mind when you said Cleveland was they've struggled to get a winning sports team since LeBron left and before LeBron was there.
First thing that came to my mind when I said Cleveland, Drew Carey. Dude's hilarious. Anyway, but whatever your city, like with Indy, we know the neighborhoods, right, in downtown, even the ones they make up that aren't really neighborhoods that sound hip. I'm not even going to say it. But it's knowing that because 10 years ago, the neighborhoods that were hip are different. Where the neighborhoods are going now is different. You have to constantly be re-educating yourself.
Yep.
Carrie, at the brokerage we both used to work at before, she had an office in Carmel. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And she was brilliant. Agents would come in. She managed the office, and when new agents would come in, she made them learn all the neighborhoods and subdivisions in Carmel.
It's huge.
What they were, what the schools were like, the age of the homes, all the different things, right? Same thing with downtown Indy. If you're not constantly learning and driving through downtown and figuring out what's going on, you're going to get left in the dust.
Yeah.
And I would extend that, and I know I'm off on a rant here, but also, if you're not constantly reevaluating how you're presenting offers, what an offer should look like. Just 5 years ago, a purchase agreement in Indiana was 6 pages. Now it's 8.
Yep.
It'll likely be 9 next year.
I was having that conversation earlier today with this gentleman. Literally, when I started in this business, I remember writing my first offer. I remember it clear as day. I was super nervous. I was like, yeah, we can knock that out in like 30 seconds. No big deal. But it was 4 pages. Including the signature page, it was 4 pages.
Wow.
Now it's 8. and it's grown rapidly in the last several years. And that's just what it is. The industry is always going to continue to evolve. It's going to continue to grow. But, the main thing we wanted to really accomplish with this episode was just kind of sharing some insight as to what's actually going on here in the local market right now. What are some strategies that you can employ to get your offer accepted? We've not really talked about that a whole lot yet, but, I'll give you a couple examples. And I'll give you some extreme ones here real quick. But one of the things that, we found because everybody's situation is a little bit different, right? And I'm helping somebody right now that, they didn't know they were looking for something. Turns out they were looking for a piece of property, and it was kind of happenstance, but it was an amazing piece of property that is going to fulfill their lifelong family goals of everybody kind of lives together, got this awesome property with all these lakes on it, et cetera. And it's a cool story, and I really, really like this individual. But he's buying this property. He wasn't planning on it. So in order to get our offer accepted, because he was not approved yet, and he was buying a piece of property that was not just a normal house, so it's a little bit different. Yeah. There's more moving parts involved here. And we had to come in, and we ended up paying an exorbitant amount over appraised value in the event that it appraises low. We guaranteed $5,000 in money to them to get our offer accepted in the event anything happens and we just decide we don't want this house anymore, to any part of the inspection goes bad, to anything. But that's the extreme steps that people are willing to take right now to not lose out on something, because it is so difficult and oftentimes personal to people to get their offer accepted. So that's what you have to be consciously aware of, is people are willing to pull out all the stops to win right now. And if you're not, you may have to reevaluate your plan.
And let's talk about what the numbers kind of look like right now, right? Mm-hmm. Just a little bit. So units sold, 1,374.
In the last month.
Right, in Marion County.
Our metro area.
Yep. Metro area. That's up 2.8%.
Yeah. Unit sold's up from a year ago right now.
Right.
Yeah. Same month a year ago, 2019. Yeah. So
now,
it's up.
Active inventory's up 6.7%. But here's, and part of this because we're going into the holidays and it was the election that's still actually going on. Like frickin' Groundhog Day over here. But new listings last month was down, 8.4%.
Yeah.
But there's still 1,553 new listings last month. So we're slowing down a little bit. But as we saw last year, we slowed down in the winter, yes, but it's 18 or 19% lower than it is in the summer.
That's it.
Real estate doesn't come to a screeching halt. So all the people out there that are thinking, well, I didn't buy a house when there's a bunch of inventory, I guess I'll wait till spring. Oh, no. And we did a whole episode last winter on buying and selling in the winter, right?
That's it, yep.
The prices are still, or the houses are still moving. Days on market's down. The average days on market's down to 24. And that's all of the 14 township metro area.
That's what people have to wrap their heads around. That is not the good houses. That's every house that hits the market and sells is 24 days right now. That's what's insane about this. So if that's the case, and we can do the numbers on this, because there's always some good numbers, there's always a bad apple in there that ruins averages, right? But if you look at it, and we can do this exercise, and we're going to spare the audience my minutia of diving into the MLS right now, but literally we can do this, and the first 30 pages of sales will be homes that have sold in a day.
Oh, yeah.
And that's it. And then you have the homes that sold in 2 days, which means they had 40 offers and they didn't get around to changing the status until day 2 or 3. It was insane. That's what people have to wrap their heads around, is those numbers may be a little skewed because the competitiveness that exists out there for the better homes, it's through the roof.
Oh, dude, Wednesday I took a client to go see a house on the north side. And we get there, and the one house she had wanted to see pended before we even got there. Mm-hmm. She asked me to go see it that morning. Can we go see this house at 4 o'clock?
It was already sold, yeah.
Got it accepted by lunchtime. It pended. It was already sold. She found another one. Put the thing in. We get there. Before we even get to the front door, she's like, it's been on the market 11 days. You think something's wrong with it?
That's crazy, though. That's so incredible that that's the thought process, though.
Right.
But I have that conversation with my people that are considering putting their homes on the market. Well, let's just try it at this price. Well, that's cool if we just try it at that price. However, what are the thoughts that go through your mind when you're scrolling through Zillow and you see a home's been on the market for 14 days?
What's wrong with it?
That's just it. If we are so conditioned, especially in certain price points within the market, but that number means something. The average days on market means something, especially when you get hyper specific to a community. And man, if you exceed that, that's a death nail if you're a seller, because now only that. Did it take you longer to sell? Man, you still got to go through an inspection and appraisal, et cetera.
And it's almost, to use a real estate term, psychologically affected property now.
It is.
Which is kind of crazy. So we go up and look at it. We found out pretty quick why it'd been on the market that long. The house structurally was great, and there's hardwood under the carpets, but it was dated. It was a time capsule from 1978.
Yeah.
Now this client, she's so freaking cool. She was like, well, my last house was a 1940s farmhouse I remodeled by myself. Yeah, let's put an offer in. And so we got it. Now, and I use that to segue into, number one, smart on her part. Number two, if you're looking for a house and you're not a scourge of Harvest Gold toilets and rust-colored shag carpet and all those kind of things, right? And you're willing to do the updates on a house that's structurally sound, has good wiring, good plumbing,
Yeah.
That's another way to find opportunity. That's another way to get a house bought. And that is another way to build in equity by doing some of the work yourself.
And that just goes to the final point, and this is just a great piece of advice that a good lender buddy of mine shared with me a long, long time ago, and that is that anytime a house is bought or sold, somebody gets the equity, right? Right. Somebody gets the equity. Well, if you're willing to do all that work, make the house uber awesome, guess what? You're going to get the equity that comes with that. If you don't want to do all that work, guess who is going to get the equity that comes with that?
Right.
The person who buys it. And there's various degrees of what can happen in between there, of course, but ultimately somebody's going to get the equity that exists there, because nobody is going to come in and say, I want to do this work and pay full retail for it. Doesn't happen that way. So if you want to sell your house for a premium dollar, make it look like a premium dollar property. Take away all of the we could do this, or maybe we'd have to do that. The minute you take away all of those variables is the minute somebody says, yes, I want that one, and I will pay you way more than what you want for it right now, period.
Exactly right.
So
look, wow. Have we really been doing this for 37 minutes?
Well, we've been having a conversation about real estate. We both happen to have a lot to say about real estate. So, nevertheless, go ahead.
Let me before we wrap up here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, review,
comment. We just want to talk to people. That's why we do this.
Send us take the text from this, the stuff that Ryan and I've talked about today. Send us your interpretation of that. Use an interpretive dance. We'd love to see it. Jason's all about that. He's going to jump on it.
He's got that. So for everybody this week on Blue Collar Real Estate, I'm Ryan Herget. We're going to just throw in the towel on this episode right now. Greg, I'm just stealing it from you real quick. We're going to throw it in like Rocky Balboa in Rocky IV right now. Throwing it in. So for everybody, I'm Ryan Herget.
And I'm Greg Mayo.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day. That was not our best.